What's the latest in the Adrian Kempe contract talks? Plus, did the LA Kings upgrade at the backup goalie position? That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night. Right now during the offseason, we're looking at all 32 NHL teams and how their off seasons have gone. And I'm also a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Coming up in today's show, we're going to get to know new Kings goalie Anton Forsber and answer the question, did the Kings upgrade at the backup goalie position? Plus, where do the LA Kings top prospects rank compared to other NHL teams? But we start with contract talks. Apparently, LA Kings GM Ken Holland was on Sirius XM NHL radio on Tuesday. Now, the network itself put out a clip on social media promoting that fact and then added a link to go check out the full interview. I was more than happy to do that, clicked on the link, went to their show page, and listened to the entire show that they claimed the full interview was a part of, and it wasn't there. So I don't know if this was something they taped and is going to air later. All I know is the show they claimed Ken Holland's interview was on in its entirety was not there, not even a part of it. But I will be able to share Ken Holland's clip that they played in their little promo video, but his full comments I cannot comment on. But Ken Holland was asked about contract talks with Adrian Kempe and Anton Kopitar. Holland said about Kempe, quote, "The Kempe situation, JP Barry," that's Kempe's agent, "we've talked a couple of times. We're going to get ramped up here. Obviously, I'd like to sign him to an extension. He's an important guy on the team. I believe he wants to stay. JP Barry said he wants to stay. I did talk to Adrian the day I was announced as manager and got a real good feeling from him. So I got to get on that front. I got to get going on that front. I want to get him signed to a long-term deal. He's a real important part of the team." End quote. Okay, so nothing earth-shattering there. Nothing too revealing. I think we all know, yes, Adrian Kempe is very important to the LA Kings. Is it good that Kempe and his agent have given indications that he wants to stay in LA? Sure. But as we all know, that only goes so far. He wants to stay in LA as long as he's being treated fairly in his mind. And look, I think Adrian Kempe has been a very good soldier for the LA Kings. He's done everything they've asked of him. He's outperformed his past contract, and now he expects to cash in. And he should. Now, I get that Ken Holland is not going to just go into a meeting with JP Barry and say, here's a blank check, fill out whatever you want. There has to be a negotiation. There has to be, here's what we're willing to offer. Here's what we want. Well, we'll move a little bit here. We'll move a little bit there. But Adrian Kempe and his agent need to know the Kings are going to take care of him. And he's going to get paid. He should get paid. He better get paid. Let's get this done. I've said it before. I'll say it again. And I hope I won't have to say it once the season gets going. But Adrian Kempe deserves to get paid a lot. And we as fans do not need the stress of wondering if Adrian Kempe is going to be a part of the LA Kings going forward. Now, it all seems to make too much sense not for this to get done for a number of reasons. As I've said, he's probably the Kings' best player. He's an invaluable part to this team. He's an offensive weapon on a team that doesn't have a ton of offensive weapons. He's an underrated player in the NHL. If he played for another team in a better offensive system, he would make more money because he would put up bigger numbers. So he needs to get paid. If it's $10 million a year, it's $10 million a year. But let's get this over with. Let's get it done. Let's get it done before the season starts. There's no drama here. There shouldn't be. He deserves it. He's earned it. Let's make it happen. Let's do it before October 7th when the Kings open up the season against the Colorado Avalanche. This is not brain surgery. This shouldn't take a lot. Pay him what he wants, pay him what he deserves, get it over with, let's get it done. As for Anton Kopitar, Ken Holland said the following quote, in Kopitar's case, he wants to take it a year at a time. He'll assess where he's at the end of the season. I respect that. He's earned that right. I know he's excited for the upcoming year, and then somewhere down the road, we'll talk about the following season, end quote. Now, would it be nice for all of us to have a little more clarity on what Anton Kopitar is thinking about his future? Sure, but as Ken Holland said, he deserves to go about this in whatever way he wants to. And look, the fact of the matter could very well be, as it stands today, Anton Kopitar doesn't know what he's going to do at the end of the season. And this is even for a player of the stature of Anton Kopitar, these decisions typically are not very easy. Now, sometimes the decision is made for you because you can't play anymore. But when it's your decision on when to go, and it's something you've done your entire life, it's something that you have a passion for, it's something that you enjoy, those are difficult decisions. We heard Corey Perry say they're going to have to cut the skates off him to get him to stop playing. I don't know that that's Anton Kopitar. I'm not saying he doesn't love the game. I know he does. It's been obviously a part of his life for so long. His dad was a coach. His brother played. I mean, it's a part of who he is, obviously. So how he feels today could be different at the end of the season. So I would say my advice to Kings fans is prepare yourself as if this is Anton Kopitar's last season, because it might be. It's going to be his 20th season. That's a lot. That's a lot of hockey. He's won his Stanley Cups. He's been the captain for a long time. I've said I think he's the greatest LA King of all time. And he does deserve to go out in whatever way he wants to. And we'll see if he makes a decision as the season goes along. We'll see how he plays on a performance level. I think if the Kings make a deep playoff run, and I think if Kopitar plays well and he's a part of it, I could definitely see him coming back for another season. But if the season doesn't go well, or if his play slips significantly, I could also see him saying, you know what? It's been a great run and it's time. We'll see. I don't know where he's leaning. I don't know if he knows which way he's leaning, but like I said, like Ken Holland has said, he's earned the right to go out in whatever way that turns out to be. Now, again, I don't see Anton Kopitar being a guy who's looking to have some kind of a farewell tour. I think he's probably in the mold of what we saw from Dustin Brown, right? Brownie was in the same situation and he didn't say anything. I think it was similar, like, oh, we'll see at the end of the year. But he had made up his mind towards the end of the season, and he finally announced it late in the year that this was going to be it. And he had, a couple of final home games to be acknowledged, and then that was it. And, Dustin Brown's a pretty low-key guy. I feel like Anton Kopitar is similar. I wouldn't be surprised if he went about it just like Dustin Brown did. We'll see. I just can't see Anton Kopitar saying before the season, even if he knows that, hey, this is it, and kind of having that hang over the team for the entire season. If this does turn out to be it, like I said, I think he will announce it very late in the year, get it out there, kind of get it over with. And who knows, maybe if the Kings are in a position to go into the playoffs, maybe it's a win-one for Kopi kind of a thing. So again, I don't know what he's thinking. Not sure he knows what he's thinking. It'll be something that kind of goes along as the season goes along next year, but it will be a storyline. Will next season be the last season for one of the greatest LA Kings of all time? We shall have to wait and see about that. Did the LA Kings upgrade their number 2 goalie position? We'll talk about that next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? FanDuel tracks your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether it's a same-game parlay or watching a bet right in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you're a part of the action. New to FanDuel? New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We've been talking over the last few episodes about some of the new LA Kings, and it's time to get to know new Kings netminder Anton Forsber and his wild route to Los Angeles. Now, Anton Forsberg is going to turn 33 in November. He's a native of Härnösand, Sweden, 6'3", 200 pounds, and this will be his 11th season in the National Hockey League. He was drafted in the 7th round, 188th overall in the 2011 draft by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, in Columbus, he played parts of 3 seasons, appearing in a total of 30 games as the backup to now 2-time Stanley Cup winning goalie Sergei Bobrovsky. In 2017, Forsberg was traded to the Chicago Blackhawks along with Brandon Saad in exchange for Artemi Panarin, Tyler Mott, and a 6th-round pick in 2017. In his first year in Chicago, he played in a career-high 35 games while sharing the net with Stanley Cup winner Corey Crawford. However, that would be Forsberg's only action with the Blackhawks. The next season, he spent the entire year in the AHL with the Blackhawks affiliate, the Rockford Ice Hogs. The next season, he was dealt to the Carolina Hurricanes in a trade with Gustav Forsling in exchange for Calvin DeHaan and Alexei Sarella. He would play only 3 games for the Hurricanes, spending most of the time in the AHL with the Charlotte Checkers. After the season, he signed a free agent deal with the Edmonton Oilers, but was put on waivers and then reclaimed by the Carolina Hurricanes. Later, Carolina put him on waivers, and he was claimed by the Winnipeg Jets. He was then claimed off waivers from the Jets by the Ottawa Senators, where he finally found a home. After seeing action in 8 games with the Sens in the 2020-21 season, the next year he got a shot at being the team's #1 goalie, and he set career highs with 46 appearances, including 44 starts. That was only 2 less appearances than his combined total of 48 over the previous 6 seasons. That year, he had a record of 22, 17, and 4, 2.82 goals against average, and a .917 save percentage. However, that next year, he was back to being a backup. Matter of fact, a backup to former Kings goalie Cam Talbot. The following year, Forsberg was again the backup in Ottawa to former Kings goalie Jonas Korpisalo. And then last season, he was the #2 goalie for the Senators to Linus Ullmark. As the backup goalie last year in Ottawa, Anton Forsberg had an 11, 12, and 6 record, 2.72 goals against average, and a .901 save percentage. In his NHL career, which spans 190 games, he has an overall record of 74, 81, and 22, a 3.04 goals against average, and a .904 save percentage. Clearly, Anton Forsberg has persevered through a lot over his time in the NHL, from being a 7th-round pick to bouncing around the league, being claimed off waivers multiple times. So give him credit for sticking with it and forging an NHL career. That said, he's pretty clearly a career backup goalie. He's only been in a position to be a starter 1 season, and he was average in that 1 season. I think should something happen to starter Darcy Kuemper this year where he's lost for the season or misses a significant amount of time, I don't believe the LA Kings can rely on Anton Forsberg to carry the load. I think the Kings would have to go out and find another goalie in a trade to fill Darcy Kuemper's shoes. Now, hopefully that does not happen. That would be a horrible situation. But like I said, I don't think Anton Forsberg has ever showed the ability to be a #1 goalie at the NHL level. And look, I have no doubt that, with the LA Kings being a strong defensive team, that his numbers can be a bit better than his career NHL averages or even his numbers that he had with the Ottawa Senators. But again, he's a career backup. Now, is Anton Forsberg an upgrade over last year's backup goalie, David Rittich? Well, they're practically the same age. Both are 32 years old. Rittich is 100 days older. Rittich has appeared in more games in his career, 230, and has more wins, 108. And Rittich has fewer career losses than Anton Forsberg, 71 to Forsberg's 81, despite Rittich appearing in 40 more games. Rittich has a better career goals against average at 2.79, and they both have identical career save percentages at 904. Now, looking at the numbers from last season, Rittich had 16 wins to Forsberg's 11. Rittich had 14 losses to Forsberg's 12. However, Forsberg did have a better goals against average, 2.72 to Rittich's 2.84, and Forsberg had a better save percentage, 901 to Rittich's 886, and Rittich was playing behind a better defense than Forsberg was. Now, you would also think that Forsberg's numbers would be better, again, with the LA Kings than they were a year ago because the Kings are a better defensive team all the way around than Ottawa. So the answer to the question, is Anton Forsberg an upgrade from David Rittich? I think the answer is maybe slightly. What about the contract, though? Rittich was paid $1 million last year and just $875,000 the year before that. The LA Kings are paying Anton Forsberg $2.25 million for the next 2 years. Now, is that a ton of money? No. But is it too much money for Anton Forsberg? Probably yes. Anton Forsberg's career and numbers say to me he should make about $1 million a year, and there's no need to sign him for more than 1 year. Now, to be fair to Ken Holland, the free agent goalie market this year was horrible. Some of the names that Ken Holland had to decide over: Daniil Tarasov, Kaapo Kähkönen, Matt Murray, now a two-time Stanley Cup winner, but he's only played a handful of games recently in the NHL. Vitek Vanacek, even Cal Peterson was floating around, and he actually got signed by the Minnesota Wild. So, yes, Ken Holland did not have much to choose from. But if you look at all the other goalies that were signed in free agency, only one other goalie is getting more money than Anton Forsberg. That's Dan Vladar, who was probably the top free agent goalie available. That tells you what the free agent goalie class was. But Vladar got $3.35 million for 2 seasons from the Philadelphia Flyers. Everyone else that was a free agent that got signed is making around $1 million or less. David Rittich signed for 1 year and $1 million with the New York Islanders. And while I understand why the Kings had a desire to upgrade the backup goalie position, I'm not sure that they have done that. And they're paying about $1 million too much, and they're paying about a year longer than they probably needed to. I would have preferred they just brought back David Rittich for $1 million for 1 year. Heck, why not even give Phoenix Copley a try? He's under contract for a year and less than $1 million. So is the term and the money being paid out to Anton Forsberg an overpayment to get a player to come to LA? We've talked about the high income tax. We've talked about the high cost of living here. So maybe that's the case. Maybe that's part of the factor, but I still think it's an overpay for Anton Forsberg nonetheless. Now, I hope it works out, obviously. I do think it's reasonable to assume that Forsberg's numbers from a year ago could be better in LA because they're a better defensive team. But is that going to justify the amount of money he's being paid or for being under contract for 2 years? I don't know. Hopefully that's the case, but I would be surprised if Anton Forsberg turns out to be a significant upgrade over David Rittich. Up next, we're going to talk about where some of the Kings' future stars are ranked among the NHL's best young talent. We'll do that next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast, easy? Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page to help you reach the right candidates faster. If you've been in a spot where you need to hire right away, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person's a setback, that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Scott Wheeler of The Athletic recently put out his top 100 NHL drafted prospects. That consisted of forwards and defensemen, and his top 20 NHL drafted goalie prospects. And if you were curious how many LA Kings were on the list, I have the answer for you. And the results might be disappointing, but not unexpected, at least not by me. So, of the 100 NHL drafted prospects, the LA Kings had one player on the list. Liam Greentree was ranked 47th. Here's what Scott Wheeler said in part about Liam Greentree. Quote, Greentree's game is all about subtle, soft skill finesse for a big, strong player. He finds ways onto pucks inside the offensive zone and can stay on them, can win battles, and when he keeps his feet moving, he plays an opportunistic style with above average talent in multiple areas, shooting, handling, first touch for a player his size, etc. He has skill, and his NHL release, the puck comes off his stick hard and quick and hits the spots. I haven't seen a dynamic quality, and his skating needs work, though his speed is decent when he gets going. It's more through his first few steps, but he has pro size, a well-rounded toolkit offensively, individual skill, and a growing statistical profile. He's not ultra competitive, but he has played harder and with more pace this season. He's not going to be a star, but he looks like he has the makings of a solid second-line NHL forward who can play up and down the lineup, end quote. And that was Scott Wheeler of The Athletic talking about Liam Greentree. Kind of sounds like an Alex Laferriere type, if you believe Scott Wheeler's description of Liam Greentree. Okay, so should we be upset, worried, concerned that the Kings only had one player in the top 100 skater prospects list? Well, maybe a little, but I think it also speaks to the Kings being a playoff team for 4 straight years and where they have had to select in the NHL draft, including a couple of drafts where they didn't have a first-round pick. Now, as you would expect, the list goes hand in hand, for the most part, with winning and losing teams. Teams that win don't have many players on the list. Florida, Dallas, Colorado, 0 players in the top 100 drafted prospects. Along with LA, Vegas, Toronto, Tampa Bay had just 1 player in the top 100. Edmonton and Carolina had 2 each. So who had the most? Well, the teams that suck. Chicago, 7 players in the top 100. San Jose, 6 players in the top 100. So I think the real concern would be if you were a bad team over the last 4, 5, 6 years and you didn't have many players in the top 100. For example, Buffalo, Columbus, Philadelphia, just 3 each. So those teams have more to be concerned about, I would think, than teams like the LA Kings. Now, would it be nice to have a few more players in the top 100? Sure. But I don't think it's necessarily something to lose a lot of sleep over. The Kings have been winning. Obviously, we'd like them to win more in the playoffs, but they've been a successful regular season team 4 years in a row going to the playoffs. As a result, you're not drafting the big, big time prospects. And so the results are what they are. Now, Scott Wheeler also put out his top 20 list of the top NHL drafted goalie prospects. And I was very curious to see where Hampton Slukinski and Carter George fit on that list. And not surprising, they were both in the top 20. Slukinski checked in at number 13 and George at number 14. Now, I am far from an expert on these types of things, but I am a little surprised that they were both not higher on the list. Hampton Slukinski led a team to its first ever NCAA national championship as a true freshman. None of those other guys on the list ahead of him did that. And Carter George was the starting netminder for Team Canada in the World Junior Championships. None of those guys above him did that either. So those seem to me to be pretty solid credentials. I don't know exactly what the qualifications were to how Scott Wheeler put his list together, but okay, it's his list. It's not mine. Like I said, I would have had those guys a little bit higher up, but okay. As for what Scott Wheeler had to say about Hampton Slukinski, quote, he's a lean goalie, but has grown from 6'1", 179 in his draft year to 6'2", and 185 pounds now. Slukinski is a very smart, anticipatory goalie with legitimate quickness and mobility in the net. He stays square to the shots and hits his spots early. He's active and fast on his feet, athletic with good hands, sticks with shooters one-on-one, gets to his spots early and tracks well. Most of the boxes you look for. He needs to get stronger to hold the crease better on jam plays, but that's been my only criticism of his game. Despite his glossy record over the years, I've also seen him steal a lot of games with his mobility and talent. With some added strength, I think he's going to be a good NHL goalie. That was what Scott Wheeler had to say about Hampton Slukinski. As for what he had to say about Carter George, he said, quote, George doesn't have ideal size, but he's big enough, 6'1", 190, and rarely seems to get frozen straight up with shooters because he has good hands. He knows when to stay on his feet and when to get down and pick pucks out because he reads it so well off the blade, and he's patient. He's very communicative and shows comfort playing pucks. He tracks pucks through traffic really well. He has quick feet and closes his five-hole fast with mobility, moving laterally and correcting. George has a positionally sound and calm game for his age that shows a lot of maturity. He's not super explosive, but he's a smart, quick, competitive, consistent goalie who should have a long pro career and has the calm, studious demeanor you look for, end quote. And again, that was Scott Wheeler of The Athletic talking about Kings goalie prospect Carter George. So the Kings joined San Jose, Montreal, and Detroit as the only NHL teams that had more than one goalie on the list of top 20 goalie prospects. Other teams also had two as well, just like the Kings. Now, I was not surprised by this list. Like I said, I would have guessed that Greentree, Sluginski, and George would have been the only Kings prospects listed in the top 100 skaters or the top 20 goalies. I would have been very surprised if anyone else had been on the list. I think when we think about the top prospects for the Kings, it is Greentree, it is Sluginski, and it is George. Clearly, those are the top three, and everyone else is kind of a distant second at this point. So wanted to share that with you. Hope you found that a little bit enlightening, a little bit interesting, and a little bit informative. So that's going to do it for today's show. If you are an everydayer listening and watching the Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on our next show, LA Kings insider Zach Dooley is going to join us to talk about the Kings and their offseason moves. We'll also have on a future show a breakdown of the Kings 2025-26 regular season schedule that will be released on Wednesday. And then, of course, on Friday, another Kings fan feedback show. If you want to send an email for that show or anything else, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. You're always welcome to post your thoughts as well. If you're watching on YouTube, in the comment section, we'd love you to stay connected with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. We're at Locked On LA Kings, and on Facebook, facebook.com/Locked On LA Kings. And if you want more LA Kings coverage and support your host, shoot me an email to lakingsextra@gmail.com, lakingsextra@gmail.com, and I will give you all of the details on that. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings go.